So recently, Russia calls Israel to stop targeting Iranian terrorist targets in Syria. So what Russia is doing in Syria in first place? And one more thing, it sets its army in the border of Ukraine country. Are these the signs of end time, or it's the sign of Jesus' second coming?
Yes, sister, I'll tell you, this is the beginning of the fulfillment of the signs of the end time. Actually, the whole problem is Ukraine was once upon a part of United Socialist Soviet Republic, USSR. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, Ukraine declared itself as an independent country, and almost it is second largest country in the erstwhile Soviet Union. Next to Russia, Ukraine is the largest part of the Soviet Union. And Russia has occupied a part of Ukraine because most of the people living there, they speak Russia. So Ukraine felt insecure, and Ukraine wanted to join North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. So Ukraine is feeling insecure because Russia has already occupied a part of their country and they are feeling insecure. So they want to put a check on Russia. They want to stop Russia from proceeding. So they said, we want to join North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But during the regime of senior Bush, President George Bush Senior, George Bush Senior said, because the Soviet Union is no more existing, Warsaw Pact has become null and void, and Warsaw countries also, they fell apart. There is no existence anymore for Warsaw, the Pact, and the League of Nations. So there is no need for NATO to continue. After the falling apart of USSR, Soviet Union, international diplomatic circles raised the question, why is NATO still existing? NATO was formed to meet the challenge of Russia and its allies. But now because Russia has fell apart, Warsaw is no more effective, why should NATO continue? Then George Bush said, we will stop the spreading of NATO and we will not extend NATO even 1 inch into Europe anymore. But after that, during the regime of President Bill Clinton, they have moved further into Europe. Finally, because of the threat of Russia, Ukraine wants to join NATO. And moreover, Russia is supplying gas and fuel to Germany and other European countries. And they have a pipeline which goes through Ukraine to Germany, France, and other European countries. Because of the threat of Russia, Ukraine is again and again threatening that they will block the gas pipeline running through their country. So this rift is continuing. This is all the process that is required to bring the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. In the end time, the Bible says in the book of Daniel, there will not be peace among the nations. Daniel's book, 2nd chapter, 41st verse. Daniel 2:41. I shall read it out for you. This is because you have raised the question in English. I am also addressing the international community, English-speaking community. The book of Daniel, 2nd chapter, 42nd verse, 43rd verse. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united. People will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. So there shall come a time where the nations of the world will find it impossible to stay together. They cannot stay united anymore. So because of this disunity, lack of unity, there shall come a requirement for Russia to invade upon Israel. That is the first symbol, or the fulfillment of the end time events. That war is prophesied in the book of Ezekiel, 37th chapter. The book of Ezekiel, 37th chapter, it says, the whole Israelite people, all the Israelite people will be called from their graves, from different nations. They will be gathered together once again into the land of Israel. The book of Ezekiel, 37th chapter, the rebirth of Israel nation is prophesied in 37. In 38, the war of Russia and their military allies against Israel is prophesied. 37 foretells the rebirth of the nation of Israel. 38, God has foretold that Russia with his military allies will invade upon Israel. With that, the actual drama of the end time events will start, will be triggered. Actual end time events begin when Russia makes war against Israel. That is prophesied in 38. So Russia is gathering reasons to invade upon Israel. That's what right now is happening. Russia is picking up reasons for quarrel. Russia is picking up reasons for an invasion, for a war against Israel. Now what's happening is, Russian armies are in Ukraine. And as a side effect, Iranian terrorist groups are also in Ukraine. Please note this point. Russian armies are in Ukraine, and Iranian terrorist camps are there in Ukraine. So Iranian terrorist groups, they want to attack Israel from Ukraine. So Israel said, if you attack on Israel, we have to counterattack. We want to retaliate. So that tension is there. And you know, in the war that is prophesied in Ezekiel 38th chapter, Iran is a military ally of Russia. In the 38th chapter of Ezekiel, Russia and Iran together are going to make war against Israel. Now there are Iranian terrorist camps in Ukraine, and Russian army's troops are there in Ukraine. And if something happens, if an Iranian terrorist outfit or terrorist organization launches a missile against Israel, Israel will definitely retaliate. Then Russia will say, while we are there in Ukraine, why Israel made this invasion? This is a conspiracy of the NATO nations. That is the way Russia will pick up a reason for quarrel, reason for a battle. All this is leading us to the war in Ezekiel 38. 37 Israel is reborn, brought out of the graves. 38. Upon the reborn Israel, Russia and Iran are making a war. And right now, in Ukraine, there are Iranian terrorist groups and also Russian armies. This is very interesting. Through all this scenario, Russia will finally say, we have a justified reason to invade against Israel. Russia is going to declare, we have a reason to make war against Israel. And then Iran and Germany also will join, because through Ukraine, the Russian gas and fuel, it is being supplied to Germany. And Ukraine is stopping it. So Germany has a reason. Germany has a reason. And Russia has a reason. Iran has a reason. And the present scenario is giving Syria also a reason. So the Bible says, I have written this in my Telugu book, Yugantam. Some 35 years ago, I have written this. Russia, Iran, Germany, and Syria and Libya. These countries unitedly will make war against Israel. So the present scenario in the Middle East, it is just paving the way for the fulfillment of Daniel's, Ezekiel's prophecy, the Lord's prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, 38th chapter. This is a very interesting subject, sister. Thank you for raising this question. I think you have all followed what I said. Russia is picking up reason to make war against Israel. And besides Russian troops, there are Iranian terrorist troops also. And this war is causing trouble for Germany because the pipeline is being obstructed. And Syria has also a reason. Germany also has a reason. Iran and Russia, they all become military allies to invade upon Israel. This is preparatory scenario for the fulfillment of Ezekiel 38. Thank you very much.